On the show today, we ask, what is Nigeria's priority for gas? You can join the conversation with the hashtag Beyond Markets. You can follow my Twitter handle too, at Esther Awoniyi. Now, it's no doubt that Nigeria has abundant gas reserves, but how is Africa's largest economy prioritizing its gas value chain? Dada Thomas, president of the Nigerian Gas Association, joins me for this discussion. Dada, thank you so much. Pleasure
Esther,
to have you.
good morning. Thank you for having me.
Let's start from the global front. There have been these conversations about whether or not there's a surplus or deficit in the liquefied natural gas market. And when I was reading up, I discovered that it appeared that some producers actually thought or had projected that there would be a surplus this year. That didn't turn out to be the case. Now there's actually a deficit. So now conversations are around, okay, where are the projects and how viable are these projects going to be?
You're correct. I mean, 2017 data shows that LNG market actually grew. And that growth was driven primarily by China. China now is the second largest importer of LNG. Japan is the first. They've displaced Korea as the second largest importer. And they've been pulling a lot of LNG cargoes to themselves. The people who are supplying, there are 19 countries supplying LNG, and people have stepped up. The Americans have stepped in with their Cheniere LNG exporting gas. And the Australians mostly have, of course, stepped into that picture. They've launched 4 huge projects, which are now on stream in the last many years. They're geographically placed, so it's advantageous for them. Shipping is far faster and cheaper, so they've stepped in to fill the gap that has existed. And I think the good news is that whereas we thought there would be an oversupply a few years ago, it looks like all the projects have come on stream. New projects haven't reached FID, so there may be a supply shortfall in the years to come. And that means that it's an opportunity for Nigeria. So,
and what we hear is that China's appetite for LNG is going to grow. I mean, they're replacing coal with gas now. And I mean, just looking at Q1 from latest data, Q1 imports up 59% from a year ago. So, and what we hear is that that could grow. On the other hand, with the current trade dispute that China is having with the US, another question is, if China decides not to import LNG from the US, who are those who could step in?
It's not just a growth of a country. Globally, LNG market and demand is growing at twice the rate of which gas as an energy source is growing, okay? And LNG itself, gas is growing at twice the rate, and LNG itself is growing at twice
the rate of
gas.
Okay.
So the demand for LNG is growing very, very rapidly. If China were to make a decision not to import LNG from the US, I think there are lots of other people who can step in. And the reason is very simple. The spot market has developed in the LNG market, very similar to the oil market, where instead of everything is a long-term locked-in contract, there are now spot markets. So a ship departs from a supplier, and traders vie for that ship, and the ship can go in any direction it wants, just make the right offer. So the spot market allows that gap to be filled very readily and very flexibly. But I think the Australians are the best positioned to really fill that supply demand that from China, because they're geographically located in the region.
Another reason why I asked that question was because I was thinking about Nigeria too. I mean, we used to be a very big player, and I'm wondering to myself, would it be a missed opportunity for Nigeria? Can Nigeria step in and also be one of those players?
Well, Nigeria has 20 years of supplying LNG to the world, and I think we've done very well in that respect. We used to be in the top 3. We've fallen out of the top 3, but with the expansion that is planned for Train 7, the FID final investment decision will be made in December this year.
Why was it delayed? Because I mean, these projects. I mean, right from January, that's when we'll be talking about these projects.
Good
and
question.
What we hear is that there was a delay in the final investment decision. How did that happen?
Excellent question, Esther. Look, LNG itself took 30 years to take off in Nigeria because we played politics. There was bureaucracy. So Train 7 itself has been delayed by nearly 8 years. And in that time, Australia has done 4 LNG projects. The Americans have turned from a net importer to an exporter of gas. The Cameroonians are exporting gas now from a floating LNG project. We have just not been speedy and focused and economic in the way we make decisions. But we hope that in December 2018, that the final investment decision will be made for LNG Train 7, and that will turn it from 22 million tons per annum to 30 million tons per annum. We'll be back in the top 3 by the year 2023 or 2024. So that's where the opportunity lies. LNG is very well positioned. They've got 20 years track record. They're reliable. They're known for good quality gas. So that gives them an advantage. And if it's Train 7, it is just expanding an existing project, which makes your pricing far much more competitive and compelling. So if you ally that with a credible track record of 20 years of supply, okay, plus a competitive price and a flexible contracting strategy, because the game has changed. No longer do people want to be locked into 20-year LNG contracts. They want short-term contracts, maybe 5 years, 7 years, 3 years, so that everybody is nimble. They don't want you to give them your ship. They're ready to bring their own ship to take their own cargo. So if you listen to the MD of LNG talking, he said, look, we're flexible. All we want to do is create value for both parties. And I think that's the strength of LNG in Nigeria, and I think we have a good chance.
And that has definitely become, that sounds like that's become a game changer for the market.
Absolutely.
Let's move on now. Still on gas, and the NNPC has said that it's embarked on the most aggressive gas expansion strategy that we've seen in years. But then a key question is, what are our priorities, the priorities of the government for gas,
Look,
especially before the election?
Sitting as the president of the Nigerian Gas Association, the biggest priority I would say right now for the government should be pay the gas debts.
How much are we talking about?
We're talking, well, the power sector, I think globally, owes about 1.3 trillion naira to everybody involved in that value chain, okay? And I think the gas sector is owed easily about 300 billion naira, easily 300 billion naira. That's a lot of money, okay? The Payment Assurance Guarantee Scheme that has been in place since January 2017 will end in December 2018. And we have been engaging with the government, asking the simple question, what will happen on January 2019? How will you assure us, the gas producers, that we will be paid our gas invoices as at when due come 2019? We have not had a single answer to that question yet.
Does it make things a lot more complicated now that we're in an election cycle? I mean, even January 2019, we'll be right in the eye of it.
But you know that, Esther, absolutely. Because I think, unfortunately, in Nigeria, when it comes to election period, we neglect governance, and we go and focus on pure electioneering. And that's why we're hoping that they will address this issue very, very urgently. And more importantly, they need to address the issue of passing the PIB before serious electioneering starts around October.
But we saw some traction, and then all of a sudden, things just slow down.
Yes.
Why do you think that
happened? A miracle happened. After 18 years in limbo, the Petroleum Industry Governance Bill was passed, but it's yet to be assented to by the President. There are 3 more bills waiting: the Petroleum Industry Fiscal Bill, the Petroleum Industry Administration Bill, and the Host Community Bills. The National Assembly wishes to pass those 3 bills as one. Okay. I wish they would just pass the fiscal bill first of all.
Why? Why do you want them to do that?
Because that is the most important bill to investors. It is the bill that says to them, if I invest this amount of money, will I get my money back? Is this project viable? Can I make this project a bankable project so that I can, make an investment decision? If the numbers are not right, we will not get the external investments. I'm not talking chicken feed. We need hundreds of billions of dollars to bring the 192 TCF of gas, which is lying beneath our feet, to the surface, to turn it into value creation for Nigeria.
Is the association, are you having conversations with policymakers and lawmakers? Because, obviously, this is crucial for you too. Are you having conversations with them, putting pressure on them to pass these bills, and, of course, highlighting the importance and the disadvantages of the delay? Absolutely,
Esther. And I think that the good thing is that we've been engaging. We've been engaging for the last 3 years, and we really intensified that engagement in 2017 and 2018, and they're listening. That's the good thing. They are listening. We're relating to the Senate Committee on Gas. We're relating to the House Committee on Gas. We're relating to the Federal Ministry of Petroleum and the economic team. And we're engaging with them. And we're advancing arguments and they're advancing arguments, and we're both listening to each other. And what's happening is that we're seeing a fiscal bill which is becoming more and more acceptable to the government and more acceptable to investors.
Can we then say that is where the challenge lies? The fact that there might be one or two things that are not agreeable to them that they want to sort out, bring you to the table and say, can we adjust this, tweak this here and there?
There are major issues. Many operating companies and investors don't want the removal of an incentive called AGFA, the Associated Gas Framework Agreement, which allows you to write off unprofitable gas expenses against oil projects. Okay? On the other hand, the government says, no, we want to open up the gas space to any investor, not just those who have oil portfolio. Okay? So the simple answer is either remove AGFA, but put in a replacement program that would make sure that a single standalone gas project is economically viable, okay? Or if you don't want to do that, then leave AGFA alone. It's such an important topic that even the union went to a public hearing and said to the government, leave AGFA alone. Because if you take it away without replacing it with something that is just as good, our members will be out of job.
So what is the body language? Do you think the government is willing, or at least to consider putting a replacement if they do take the AGFA?
They have a highly skilled team working with them, and they're listening. And I think we've closed the gap considerably. The issue is with all the issues happening at the National Assembly. When are they going to sit down to have the third hearing? All you need is one more hearing on these bills, and they can then be passed. Are we going to fall into the same trap as the 7th Assembly, that they needed one more hearing and they failed to pass the bill? That would be a disaster for Nigeria. We need the petroleum industry bill passed now.
So I guess for now, we can only just keep our fingers crossed.
We pray and hope, and we continue to push that please pass this bill.
Definitely. Well, let's move on to other gas issues. Gas flaring, of course, the Nigerian government has a Nigerian gas flare commercialization program.
Correct.
That was also, according to it, it will offer gas flares for sale by the federal government through a transparent and competitive bidding process. But this was put together 2016. Mm-hmm. 2 years later, how far have we come or gone with it?
Well, this is not the first such initiative by Nigeria. There have been many, and they've never really worked as they should have. But the good thing is that there has been improvements. We used to flare more than 2 billion standard cubic feet of gas over 10 years ago. Today, we only do it flaring about 700 million standard cubic feet.
But we're still the second highest gas flaring nation in the world.
It's a vast improvement. You're 1/3 of where you were before. Now, this new program intends to zero flares. And how do they want to do that? They're going to take flare. The government will take the flare gas, and they will not pay the operator who is producing that gas. And then they're going to bid that out in a competitive process to entrepreneurs who want to turn waste into money.
So how many people have come forward? Have people come forward? Have these entrepreneurs come forward?
The Gazette was just approved in July. Oh. The actual program was approved by the president in June. We were in Washington at the World Gas Conference when it was done. I've just got a copy of the Gazette, which was approved in July. The next step now is the rollout of the program. So we're assured that in the coming months, there will be the auction process deployed, which means that you, Esther, you can apply to bid for a flare block. And you better know what you're doing. You better know what you're doing, because this program is a gas monetization value chain, which means that if you don't have your customers and the ability to generate your income secured, you should not you won't get money to invest. So the success of the program, I think, will depend on how commercially savvy the potential bidders for those flare blocks will be. That's one. And two, finding technical solutions to monetize a very difficult substance to turn from waste into money. Very, very challenging. But they have to go and look for the right technologies that would allow them to, in my view, locally turn gas as a waste into money in terms of a value that people will buy into.
And you think that we can end gas flaring in 2 years, which is the government's target?
I think 2 years is ambitious.
In that direction.
I think 2 years is ambitious because a typical program could be 1 year to 3 years in terms of implementing the project. But I think it's good to have a stretch target. And I'm looking forward to zero flare production in Nigeria in the next 5 years. It would be a real significant improvement in the oil and gas industry.
Hold that thought for us. We'll take a quick break and we'll come back, pick up from where we left off. Thank you for your time so far.
Right.
I've been speaking to Dada Thomas, President of the Nigerian Gas Association, focusing on Nigeria's gas industry. We're continuing our focus on Nigeria's gas priorities. Still with me in the studio is Dada Thomas. He's the president of the Nigerian Gas Association. Dada, thank you for your time so far.
So thank you.
Let's continue with the gas discussion, of course, and let's focus now on gas infrastructure. The NNPC says it has embarked on the most aggressive gas infrastructure network aimed at creating access to the market. But I'd like you to give us just a brief context in terms of where we were and where this has brought us to now.
Well, I mean, this is a good move. One of the biggest hindrance to development of gas in Nigeria has been a lack of infrastructure. We have, in my view, we have 1/10 of the infrastructure we ought to have to be able to move the molecules from where they are produced to where they are consumed. And in the world, the easiest way of moving gas is through pipelines. Okay, we have less than about 4,000 kilometers of pipelines for moving gas in Nigeria. We need about 40,000 kilometers of pipelines. So the AKK, the Ajaokuta-Kaduna-Kano pipeline project, in my view, is a good thing because it would allow gas to come from the Niger Delta to reach Ajaokuta. There's already a connection there, and then from Ajaokuta all the way to Kano. You can imagine if you can put a trunkway for moving gas, then you can have multiple off-takes from there to other places. I've been to Kano, and all the textile factories that used to be in Kano are shut down because lack of power, okay, which you need gas for to generate. So the NNPC undertaking this is a very good thing. I think the project is broken into 3 sections, and work has started on the design and engineering for those various sections. I'm not sure what the time frame for executing the project is, but I commend them, and I hope that they will do it as soon as possible. I don't know whether the funding is in place yet, but if you remember, all the basic major infrastructure for moving gas around in Nigeria have been built by the government. And the reason is that it's not viable for the private sector to build these pipelines because...
Why not? I mean, usually in a case like this, it would be the private sector to do it.
Because gas prices have always been regulated in Nigeria, and including pipeline tariff, investors can't make their money back. So would you put your money into a project in which you can't make your money back? No.
But you know, government has also has a reputation of poor maintenance when it comes to things like this sometimes. So I mean, I'm just thinking, should we worry in terms of, I mean, let's say this project is completed now. Should we would we have to worry about maintenance in the long term? You
would. All you have to do is drive around, and if you see a government edifice and you see a private sector edifice, the difference is very clear. One is properly maintained and the other one is not properly maintained. But before you maintain, you have to build first of all. To build, you have to raise money and you have to then execute a project. In my view, these projects for rolling out the gas infrastructure should be a private sector-led development. But for that to happen, the right fiscal incentives that would ensure that the projects are economically viable have to be done. And that's why I said earlier on, we've got to pass the PIB. It's the PIB that would give that framework for ensuring that a typical pipeline project will be economic, and therefore a private investor will do it. But even then, the private investor can't do it all alone. An infrastructure is a huge undertaking. So you need a collaboration between government, who can make things happen, okay, and the private entrepreneur who can execute things. Okay? So that's why we need a PPP for truly rolling out the kind of network we need. On top of that, in trying to roll out a network, you need somebody to efficiently and effectively manage it. I don't think that should be done by government. I think that should be done by an independent operator or operators, okay, who would then be accountable to all the stakeholders, who would administer the pipeline system according to what is called a network code, which has been developed by the government but hasn't yet been rolled out.
So you're saying that none of this has been captured because we have a national gas, we have a gas plan, a gas master plan.
Correct.
None of these concerns or suggestions or recommendations are captured in the master plan?
Well, the gas master plan is being revamped as we speak. I mean, the gas master plan is more than 10 years old. It has resulted in some good projects, okay? It hasn't totally fulfilled all its aspirations, but given the context of the new gas policy that was approved in 2017 or so, okay, the gas master plan is being revamped, and that's part of the AKK that is coming out by the NNPC right now. But I still believe that it should be a private sector-led initiative working with the government. A PPP is the best way to address this infrastructure deficit that we have.
And you're confident that we can reach, you're confident we can reach a good PPP? Because when I think about PPPs in Nigeria, we don't particularly have a good history.
Absolutely.
There's always issues, always challenges. And for the gas sector, I'm thinking that it might even be more complicated. I mean, just the PIB, the delays, says it all.
Well, you know, you're right that private PPPs in Nigeria have been fraught. I mean, the Lekki Tollway is a good example of that. But we need to keep learning and improving, okay? And if you understand that the E&P sector, the oil and gas sector is the bedrock of the Nigerian economy, we shouldn't trifle with it, okay? So we need to take existing models, make them better, go for international best practice, and work together as a collaboration between private sector and government to make this happen. If we don't do it, we will not be able to effectively monetize this 192 TCF of gas. It's as simple as that. You can use other means to move it around, such as liquefied natural gas. You can truck it around, okay? Yes, it's being done all over the world. You can truck them around, but that can only address a very tiny fraction of the need of the nation. To truly use gas, you have to have a pipeline network within the country, and even trans-border, okay?
So let's speak hypothetically now. Let's say the PIB gets passed eventually. How dramatic will the changes be? What would be in terms of how events could play out, in terms of the attractiveness of the space and the kind of potential investments that could come in?
The PIB itself is not the panacea for everything. Nigeria as a nation, okay, has an ease of doing business issue. We're 140 something now. We improved dramatically in 2017, but we need to get into the top 50, not on paper, but in reality, so that along with good fiscal policies, which makes your economic attractive, you need to complement that with good monetary policies. What do I mean by that? I've gone on fundraising drives all around the world, and the investors ask me a simple question. Dada, how do I get my money back? And that means they want it back not in naira, but in US dollars. And then how do I get my money out? They don't want to keep their money in Nigeria. They've invested. They want to get their principal and their profit back out. Okay? So we need policies which are complementary and there's synergy between them. Okay, that's one. But in doing business, we have to make Nigeria an attractive investment destination, that investors can come comfortably, know that they are secure. So we have to solve security issues, that they're safe, and there's sanctity of agreement, that they have restitution in case the other party breaks the terms of the agreement. Right now, one of the biggest issues we have in the power sector and the gas to power sector, there's no sanctity of agreement.
And you know, many of these issues cannot be solved overnight.
Absolutely.
They're going to take years.
Absolutely.
So is it safe to say that, I mean, we may have to wait a long time before we get the big picture for
But the thing is to start. The thing is to start. And I can assure you that once you start, it'll be an S-curve. You suddenly see that thing just ramping up.
Okay.
Because success begets success. And that's what we have to aim for. There are successful enterprises in the gas sector, okay? And we have to try and replicate those as much as possible.
All right, Dada, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show today. Thank you for your time. Dada Thomas, President of the Nigerian Gas Association. Well, that's it on Beyond Markets. Thank you so much for being a part of it. Remember, you can watch all previous episodes of the show on our website at cnbcafrica.com. You can also stay engaged with the hashtag Beyond Markets, and you can follow my Twitter handle too at Esther Awoniyi. From myself and the rest of the team, thank you for watching and do have a great day.